Hello, thank you for being here. I'm Joan, and today we're going to go over some of my favorite books of all time throughout the ages. There are books on here that I have more recently added to my favorites. Other ones I have reread a lot throughout the years, but I think it'll give you guys like a good idea on what kind of taste that I have and what kind of books that I look for, which is always evolving. I read a lot more literary fiction than I did before. I was mainly a fantasy reader growing up. Let's just go ahead and get into it. The first book that I have on is actually a series. It's the Ranger's Apprentice series by John Flanagan. I honestly cannot tell you how many times I have read this series. I have recently bought the entire thing in print for $8 at a sale, which is awesome. I have literally had the physical copies in like my cart for like $80 for years, but I just haven't bought it because I also already have them all on my Kindle. So I read this for the first time, I think, in like early high school. And then after I graduated, I was like working at Lowe's as a cashier, and I used to put my phone up on the screen and just kind of swipe and read because I would work in like the lumber department or in the garden section, and I would just consume these stories again, and I just love them so much. Basically, well, there is a lot of books. There is 11 books in this series, including a bonus book, not including the second series, which is about like the next generation of characters after these ones. So I have not read all of those ones. I started reading the second series, like the Royal Ranger one, and it really just didn't grip me as much as these ones did. And I might go and try and reread those, but I know that I'm going to be rereading these ones again, especially now that I have these beautiful heart editions. But essentially, this follows a cast of characters, but the main narrator is Will, and you kind of like grow up with him throughout the series. So he starts, I'm not entirely sure exactly what age he is, I believe probably like earlier teens, like mid-teens, maybe even like 16. But anyway, so you start with Will, and in the wards, there are a couple of different characters. There's Alyssa, and then there's Horace, who is a like warrior brute type character, and then Alyssa is like a very graceful diplomatic. In their society, the wards, in order to have basically like a sort of chance at life, since they don't have any family members to follow in like the working paths with, they are given the opportunity to apprentice with different groups throughout the kingdom. And so whenever they go to their choosing day, and so at this choosing day, Horace obviously wants to go to battle school, and then Alyssa is taken in by, I believe her name is Colleen, and she is basically like a courtier of the kingdom, which is like very diplomatic, and they work very closely with the Rangers. And so the Rangers are a very like mysterious, elusive group. They are basically kind of like spies for the kingdom. They're very uncanny in how hard they are to see when they don't want to be seen, with what kind of things that they know, and the accuracy at which they can kill with bows. Will is taken in as a ranger, and so you get to watch as he and Horace and Alyssa kind of grow and evolve and strengthen their relationships. Where, I mean, Will and Horace, they start off as like a sort of like enemy style structure until Horace is able to kind of understand what he was doing to Will while he's at battle school. Anyway, I mean, there's like 11 books, so there's a lot of stuff to get through in this. The characters are really fun. We have Houck, who is he is the ranger that is teaching Will. They have a very strong, father-son bond, and I don't know, it's just really hard to explain without, just going through it all, but I really, really do recommend the Ranger's Apprentice series. It is extensive. So much happens. There are so many different storylines. This one, it is pretty small. It's a little over 200 pages, but they get bigger as the series goes on. They are kind of out of order too, because I believe it's the 4th book. It kind of skips a year for Will's graduation, and then in the next book he's like, oh sorry, didn't know people wanted to see that part, and it goes back in time so you can see him graduate, and then goes on into his adult ranger career. And it's really fun, watching as they solve different mysteries and political plots and things, and then finding out more about the characters and their families along the way. I do need to read this again. The last time I read it, when I worked at Lowe's, that was probably 7 years ago. Yeah, 6 or 7 years ago. So I haven't read these in a minute, but I do love them. I do want to read them again, and I do recommend them. The next one that I want to go on is the Raven Boy series by Maggie Steifvater. I love Maggie Steifvater's books. I've not read her newest one, The Listeners, because I'm kind of, I don't know if I'm going to like that one from the synopsis, because I'm not much of a historical fiction person. But when I was younger and when I worked at Lowe's, I read these at work. Love this series. I think I've read it 4 times. This is about a group of teenagers in, I believe it's West Virginia, and there is a group of very wealthy private school boys. There's Gansey, Adam, Ronan, and then Noah. And then there is a girl named Blue, who is the daughter of a psychic in town, and they kind of are all on this journey together trying to find Glendower, who is rumored to be an ancient king that was buried somewhere, and whoever finds him gets to have a wish. And Gansey truly believes that he is the one that is going to find this king, and so Adam, Ronan, and Noah are attempting to help him on this journey. And Blue comes into it because of her mother when they go to see her as a psychic, and then her and Gansey have this sort of connection. But there's a caveat that Blue knows that if she were to kiss her true love, they would die. And in the beginning of the book, as she is with her aunt, seeing who is going to be dying in the next year in their town, because she can't see ghosts, but her family can. As they are doing that, Blue sees Gansey, and so she knows that he is supposed to be her soulmate, and he is going to die if they were to kiss. And so that just brings a lot of tension to it too, because she also has a connection with Adam throughout the series. And then there's also a lot of magic in these books, magic places. There is a character with an ability to bring things from his dreams into the real world, which that comes at a later time. And then there's also antagonists who are also looking for Glendower, who are trying to bring down this group of kids in other different ways. And there's a lot of different things that go on in the series. There's 4 books, and so there's a lot of different dimensions to the characters. Gansey, he is very charismatic, he's very personable, but he's also very obsessive in what he is striving to accomplish. And then Ronan is also very wealthy, but he has an older brother who is sort of antagonistically superior to him in a way, because Ronan is very much like a bad boy. He does not give a fuck about anything. And this is kind of rooted in what had happened to his family, which I'm not going to get a lot into because that is a major story part in the later part of the series. But he's got some stuff going on. Adam is not wealthy. He is at the private school on scholarship, and that he feels puts him apart from the others a lot, especially because his family is pretty abusive to him also. So he feels very ostracized from the others and does not like feeling like a charity case for them. And then Noah, he is a very sweet boy. I'm not going to be saying very much about him because there's a very big reveal at the end of the first book about him, so I'm not going to get too much into Noah. And then Blue, she is very eclectic. She is in a family of psychics and clairvoyants, but she is not able to really do any sort of like magical work. She is more of like a power bank for the rest of them, so she really amplifies their abilities. I think if you like magic and things that can't be easily explained and like uncanny weirdness, I think you would like these, and I think you should try them. Then we have the Tiger's Curse series by Colleen Houck. I have read this, I'm not even kidding, probably 8 times. I read this for the first time when I think I was like 14, which this book, with my big brain, with my big age brain, it is a little bit problematic because basically this is about a girl who recently turns 18 and goes to work at a circus. And Kelsey is very much like a kind of Mary Sue type of character. She does have some characteristics to herself, but she is not someone that you're not able to like kind of put yourself in the shoes of, if that makes sense. So in this series, there is a curse placed on 2 brothers of an Indian kingdom to where they are turned into tigers for, I believe they get 24 minutes a day to be like human men, and then the rest of it, they are tigers. And so when she unlocks their curse by freeing the tiger at the circus, she is chosen as Durga's champion to basically unlock the rest of their humanity, which it's like a series of like dungeons, and she's basically there to help them break their curse to where they can be full humans all day and not be restricted by being tigers. And it is problematic in the sense that she is a white woman chosen by an Indian goddess to break these curses, which it's like, she's from Oregon, like, it's a little, but I really do love this series. I love the characters. There is a bit of a love triangle between Kelsey, Ren, and then Ren's brother, Kishan. It's kind of like a romantasy, in a sense, because it really does, like, subplot focus their relationships and their dynamics, which I really like. Like, I love Ren. He is a very charismatic, he's very gentlemanly, he's very proper. And then Kishan is more of like the scoundrel type where he'll steal kisses and things like that. And then there's magic, there is action, there is a lot of story and prophecies that are fulfilled. I was crying after the 5th book. It hurt me so bad, but also it was so bittersweet. I feel like I'm kind of all over the place with these, but this is a good series. It's like, it is YA. I have not read it in my big girl age yet, so I could feel differently about it. I could be talking about these in rose-tinted glasses. This is something that I have picked up multiple times throughout my life, and it is very, comforting for me. The romance and the drama, they're so good. Then we have Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wang. This is a more recent favorite. I read this last year for the first time. I absolutely love this one. One of my friends, I got her to read it, and it was she also really loved it. We went to a drinking charity event a couple months ago, and her mom was driving us home, and we were just yelling at each other drunkenly in the car about this book. There's so much to talk about with this. Okay, so first chapter is so jaw-dropping. I read it on the treadmill. I started reading this book while I was on the treadmill, and I almost fucking cried in the gym because of how haunting it is. So outside of the borders of this city, at any moment, you could be ripped to shreds and basically erased, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. And it does that to the people, it does that to the animals, it does that to the plants, and so you can imagine that it would be very hard living in this sort of environment. And in Tehran, they are living in the borders where that does not happen. And they are, basically their energy system is magic. They use magic for heating and water and pretty much everything, cars even. But they see the Quen as barbaric because the Quen are the peoples that live outside of Tehran. And they are seen as barbaric because they are uncivilized, they have an odd lifestyle, they have a lesser magic, while the Tyranish people are very high society, proper, educated, if you will. And so Siona is part of these Tyranish people. And they also have the added prejudice against the Quen in a religious sense because the Quen do not believe that their religious leaders actually founded and created their society alone. So the Tyranish society is also very patriarchal. And so Siona is the first woman to ever become a high mage. And because of this, she has a lot of hurdles that she has to bypass with her colleagues. She is given a janitor, Tamil, as her lab assistant instead of someone who has studied magic and how it works. Magic in this society kind of really reminds me of coding. They basically will use a typewriter to write the code of what they're wanting to do. And so Siona is attempting to bring images to life, kind of like TVs, through magic, which is something that has not been able to do because it is forbidden. Part of the spell work is finding a large enough energy source in order to perform the spell that you're needing without overdoing it, if that makes sense. And so Siona is attempting to visualize these sources, and she is very prejudiced against the Quen. She is very ensnared in the Tyranish ideologies because it's all she's ever known. She only cares about her work and having a legacy as the first woman high mage, and that is what is most important to her, more than relationships, more than eating even. She is very ego-driven in this sense. And so as the book goes on, this breaks down as she learns more and more how they have actually gotten to this point and what they are actually doing to the Quen. And she realizes that the Quen are not as they were told. The Tyranish are oppressing these people, and they are used for cheap labor, and the Quinn are forced in these conditions because if they don't adhere to them, they'll just get kicked out and then die because they'll get torn to pieces. Around the Tyrannish vicinity, like of their, because they're in like a circle. Within their borders, they're fine, but right outside is certain death, because that is where most of the blight is materialized. And so the twist is all of these coming to fruition, but I really liked how early you understand what's going on. Like, I was like halfway through the book and I was like, this is already past the synopsis. What's gonna happen next? And I really like that because I actually really had no idea what was going to happen, and I was very enthralled by the story. I really still need to read The Sword of Kaigen. I highly recommend it. Siona's not a perfect person. She's actually really awful sometimes, but I really loved watching her grow as a character and grow in her understanding and how she uses her knowledge to attempt to make others see reason, and how that will happen in their very religious patriarchal society. Pride and Prejudice, I read this last year. It's honestly not really hard to read once you get a couple of chapters in. Like, I thought the language was going to make it impossible for me, but it was honestly the opposite. Once I went back to like more modern books afterwards, they kind of just felt a little more flat in my opinion, but it's a classic. Love Elizabeth and Darcy and Jane. I loved watching them on page instead of on screen. You know, I was seeing Keira Knightley the whole time. I'm not gonna go through this one because I'm sure you know what this is about. Then we've got Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. This is about heritage and family. It follows Milkman, who is born into a wealthy black family because his father is a landlord, essentially. And so he has never wanted anything, he has never really needed anything because it has always been provided for him. And so as the book goes, he begins to understand the privilege of his position in regards to how other people live and how he really takes this for granted when actually like out on his own. He is very selfish, he is very self-centered, he's very narcissistic. It's just a beautiful story. I highly recommend it. I'm hoping to read Beloved soon. I love Toni Morrison. I love her characters. I love the symbolism and the richness that she brings to literature. The last one on this list is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jaqueline Harpman. I'm sure you guys know I've talked about this one a lot. I think this grew into one of my favorites because I really love the character analysis of someone who knows nothing about how we live our lives in this age, but still shows such humanity towards the other women around her and towards their grief at losing their lives, even though she has no idea, cannot even conceptualize what it was like with how she grew up. This story just really, really touched me, especially with the setting. It is so desolate, it is so hopeless, but yet still so hopeful. It's giving me chills just thinking about it. I guess I just really enjoyed rooting for someone up until the end, you know? Because if you know anything about this, it's just really you hoping for anything for this character. You're hoping for anything to happen, for her to find something, and you just have to hold on to that the whole time. And I think that's why I really like this, is because Harpman had created a character who is so different and so distant from anyone that we would know in our current time, and still was able to make her someone that you care about. And I just think that that's really beautiful. I just really, really love this book. And if you like dystopias without any kind of explanation on what happened to them or what's really going on, you'll like this. It's ambiguous. But those are the books that I have in my favorites pile. I have a lot of books that I like, a lot of books that I love, but I really feel like this set of books are ones that have just stayed with me a lot more than the others. And I know that I guess I didn't really say too much about them on how they have shaped me, but I think the beauty of reading is that it's going to be different for everyone. I don't really feel like giving that little part of myself away. So I hope you liked the video anyway. If you've read any of these, let me know what you think. If you haven't read any of these, I highly recommend them. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.